Welcome to the deep dive. We're here to break down complex ideas, really pull out those key insights for you.
That's the goal.
So today, we're getting into something pretty new, pretty radical, actually. It's called Vayantara.
Hmm.
It's a metaphysical framework from Ruman Neupane's upcoming book, The Outsider.
And it's quite something. He describes it as an ontological friction where being collapses. Sounds intense.
Right, a space of non-participatory beingness. And what's really wild is where it comes from.
The spilled milk.
Exactly, a spilled gallon of milk seems so mundane.
Almost absurdly so.
So our mission today is to kind of unpack how Vayantara, born from this everyday mishap, offers this really fresh take on human freedom, on who we are.
Yeah. How something small can unlock, well, potentially big truths.
Let's dig in. Okay, so first off, Neupane really insists this spilled milk wasn't just, clumsy. It was a philosophical event. Why that specific wording? Why is that important?
Well, it's crucial because he's elevating it, right? It's not just an oops. He's borrowing, maybe implicitly, from thinkers like Badiou who talk about an event with a capital E.
Ah, okay, like a rupture.
Exactly. A rupture in the everyday flow of things. A moment that sort of cracks open the surface and points to something deeper, a potential truth. For Neupane, that milk hitting the floor wasn't just a mess. It was a crack between what is and what was meant to be.
Huh. A confrontation.
A forced confrontation with maybe the way things really are versus how we expect them to be.
Okay, and that leads him to this core problem he calls ontological misplacement. That sounds very academic, especially linked to spilled milk. Can you, simplify that?
Sure. Think of it maybe like trying to fit a square peg in a round hole, but on a reality level.
Okay.
Ontological misplacement is Neupane's term for our tendency, our error, really, of imposing this fixed ideal place or structure onto reality, which is actually fluid and messy and, well, concrete.
So the problem isn't the milk itself or reality being flawed.
No, exactly. It's our expectation, our need for everything to fit neatly into its designated spot. It's predetermined a place. The spilled milk shatters that illusion of neatness, of control. It resists categorization.
Right. And then he takes this insight and connects it back through, centuries of Western philosophy. He talks about a history of reduction, critiquing Plato, Aristotle, Aquinas. What's the thread he's pulling there?
He's basically arguing, and you can see a Heideggerian influence here, that much of Western metaphysics has tried to pin down being, to define it, categorize it, make it manageable.
How so?
By focusing on the whatness of things like, what is this chair, what is this person, rather than grappling with the sheer mystery of thatness, the simple mind-boggling fact that things exist at all.
Ah, the forgetting of being.
Precisely. He sees it as a move away from the open mystery of existence towards a world that's sort of neatly labeled and understood, which, for Neupane, is a fundamental reduction. It loses something essential.
Okay, but how does that big philosophical arc, that forgetting of being, connect back to him standing there looking at spilled milk on the floor?
It connects pretty directly, actually. He talks about the shelving emptiness, the gap where the milk should have been. That emptiness, contrasted with the actual mess on the floor, becomes a powerful symbol for what Heidegger called Geworfenheit, thrownness.
Thrownness, meaning?
Meaning you're just thrown into existence. You didn't choose the circumstances, the time, the place. You're just here. The spilled milk incident, for Neupane, dramatically exposes this. It shatters the illusion that we're fully in control, that our lives are perfectly curated, intentional projects.
It forces him to face that lack of control, that thrownness.
Exactly. The raw fact of his unchosen situation.
So faced with this reduction in Western thought and this feeling of thrownness, he turns east. He brings in neti from Hindu Vedic thought. Not this, not that. How does that fit? To argue for freedom.
It's a really clever synthesis, I think. Neti is traditionally a spiritual practice. You negate everything you think you are. I'm not my body, not my thoughts, not my roles, to get closer to the true underlying self or reality. It's about shedding definitions.
Okay.
Neupane takes that principle of negation and fuses it, quite unexpectedly, with Sartre's existentialism. Sartre saw consciousness as a kind of lack, a hole in being, which is precisely what makes us free. We aren't defined by some preordained essence.
So both neti and Sartre, in their own ways, emphasize negation as a path to, understanding, freedom.
Freedom, primarily. Both reject the idea that your essence, your beingness, is dictated from the outside by God or society or even philosophical categories. You are free because you are not definitively this or that. You get to define yourself, or perhaps better, remain undefined.
Which leads us to the term itself, Vayantara. It sounds familiar somehow.
It does have echoes, yeah, like the Vayantara deities in Jainism, sort of intermediary beings. But Neupane is playing with the sound, repurposing it.
For him, it's not about deities.
No, not at all. For him, Vayantara is this symbolic, let's call it a friction zone. It's the space, the tension, where your fundamental freedom, your undefined nature, rubs up against a world that demands definitions, categories, places for everything.
Clash.
A clash. It's where your resistance to being neatly shelved happens. And it's where an event, like that spilled milk, can suddenly expose this underlying friction, this constant negotiation between freedom and structure.
So Vayantara isn't really adding a new thing to the world. It's more like a name for the tension that's already there. A metaphor for the human condition.
That's how I read it.
Yeah.
It's a powerful metaphor for that dynamic interplay, that inherent instability even of being human and free in a structured world.
Okay. So wrapping up, what's the big takeaway here?
Well, I think the really provocative idea is that this lack of clear definition, this negation, isn't a problem to be solved. It's essential.
Yes.
Because if we could pin down being, define it completely, it wouldn't be being anymore, not in that vast, open, transcendent sense. It would just be another concept. Negation, the neti-neti, protects that openness, that infinite potential.
And the spilled milk?
The spilled milk rudely reminds us of this friction. It proves that this non-participatory beingness, this resistance to easy definition, isn't a defect. It's fundamental. And maybe counterintuitively, it's the very source of your freedom.
Wow. That really reframes things. It makes you think, doesn't it, about your own spilled milk moments, those times when things just didn't go according to plan, when the neat categories broke down. Maybe those weren't just annoyances.
Maybe they were openings, glimpses into that friction zone, into your own undefined freedom.
Something to definitely reflect on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.